President Nelson and council members, my name is Danielle Duval, and I'm commenting on behalf of NAIOP Washington State, the Commercial Real Estate Development Association, in response to Council Bill 121000. We agree with the intent of this legislation and believe that anti-competitive practices harm our housing ecosystem. However, we have concerns with the written and believe that without changes, this bill could create unintended consequences for both housing providers and tenants. We are proposing a friendly amendment that addresses our concerns. Additionally, we are concerned about the speed at which this legislation was introduced and passed out of committee. There was no outreach to key stakeholders prior to its introduction. Therefore, we would respectfully request a 1-week delay so that our organization, as well as others such as hotel and short-term rental operators, have sufficient time to address issues with the bill. We support the central goal of this legislation to prevent anti-competitive collusion. We ask the council to take time to consider the full impacts of this bill on property managers, tenants, housing providers, and tailor the language to ensure the effect of the bill matches its intent. Thank you so much for your time.
Carter Nelson on behalf of the Washington Multifamily Housing Association. WMFO represents Seattle's rental housing industry, including 91,000 units in the city of Seattle. We share the council's goal of increasing transparency in the rental market and preventing anti-competitive practices. However, we are concerned about the speed of this process and the lack of outreach to impacted stakeholders, including our industry. This ordinance was introduced and passed out of committee on the same day without prior engagement with property managers, despite the fact that the bill directly focuses on tools used in rental housing operations. Without engaging the very people that understand these tools and the problems they are designed to help solve, we are likely to see unintended consequences. As currently written, this bill would make it harder for property managers to compare rents in their own building or across properties and to understand what their competitors are asking for in rent. Taking these marketplace tools and offline will actually make housing less transparent and slow down the speed housing providers fill empty units.
I just want to speak against the motion. I appreciate the interest in wanting to continue to workshop this legislation. However, it is my opinion that more time will not get us a better bill. This legislation is taken directly from the state bill. I made the decision to replicate the state legislation rather than trying to create our own legislation because I knew it had been thoroughly vetted by legislative staff in Olympia and by Senator Jesse Solomon. I note it has been further vetted by our central staff and our law department. I felt that making changes to the state legislation ran the risk of unintended consequences and would open the door to a multitude of conflicting amendments, which we have heard along the floor that there are different conflicting amendments, some brought by the landlord representatives, some brought by the tenant representatives. I'm concerned that this is what will happen if we continue the vote, that we will get mired in conflicting and difficult pieces of amendments. There's been some concern expressed about the speed of this bill and the stakeholdering, and I appreciate that. But what I want you to know, and we addressed this issue in committee, where 4 out of the 5 of us voted to move this to today's calendar for a full vote, is that this bill moved quickly because it was thoroughly vetted statewide with the voices that we heard from today, from landlord representatives and from tenant representatives who've commented here today, both requesting to delay this vote. I do believe that Councilmember Strauss's amendment, should it pass, which requires a report back from SDCI on their outreach to landlords on the implementation of this bill, will give us the opportunity to see if we, in fact, do need to make some minor changes. And so my position is that we should move forward, that we are not going to wind up with a better product, and that we are here today fully informed of what this bill does because of the stakeholdering it received in Olympia and the opportunity to view it here and discuss it in committee, and that we do not have the time to continue to delay a tool that we have to begin to address the affordability crisis in our city. So I would respectfully request that we take the vote today. Thank you. I think it's insulting to say that Olympia always gets it wrong. To me, that's an indication of the continued arrogance of this jurisdiction to think that only Seattle knows how to do it. We have shown over and over and over that we don't always get it right. And where I stand on some of the state legislation around the comp plan, so clearly I don't think Olympia always gets it right. But I also think that Seattle has a tendency to think that it knows best always, and we do not always know best. And sometimes we need to have the humility to acknowledge when we haven't, when there's work product that actually is good, and work product that will address the issue that we have before us. And we often can muck things up because everybody has to have their fingerprint on it.